Now, I know that you guys know me as the guy who barely knows what he's doing when working on cars, but I just spent the last 12 hours working on a McLaren P1 to send it off to SEMA, and I didn't break anything. So I have a newfound confidence in getting this thing running and driving and properly on the road again today. And if I don't get it running and driving today, I'm probably just gonna sit and cry and be sad. But I'm not gonna let that happen because I am absolutely going to get this done today. All I have to do is get the shift cable on, get the power steering belt back on, and make sure that my brakes are working. And then we can take this thing for its first drive ever. So to replace the shifter cable, my first course of action is gonna be clearing some of the stuff out of the inside here so I can have access to the actual shifter itself. I don't think that was important. Now, I know that we're supposed to respect all builds and all that, but this is the type of stuff that I'm dealing with here. Just straight up wire wound around that's holding this entire shift cable into place here. And my question is, it was 20 bucks on Amazon to buy a new shifter cable. Why not just do it the right way? Why put all this work in just to do it wrong? So we got the old transmission cable pulled out, and this is the new one that's gonna be replacing it. And if we put them right next to each other, the new one actually looks a little bit longer, which I'm hoping won't be a problem, but who knows what is right and what is wrong based on this weird situation that we've got right now. Well, as I was going to check the brakes to see if everything was working for our first drive after getting the shifter installed, I realized that the new lug nuts and the old lug nuts are completely different thread sizes. So I've reached back out to Custom Offsets to see if they'll make this right and send me the correct sizes, because right now, it's not safe to drive with lugs that cannot be tightened. After a month of waiting, I finally have lug nuts. And you guys are not going to believe the process that I had to go through to get these. Now here in my hand is a 7/16" wheel stud. And if you watched the last video, you'll know that I replaced every single one of these on the rear of the car. Now the reason that I replaced these is because in my mind, I believed that the lug nuts that I got with my brand new wheels didn't fit, and so these obviously had to be a different thread size. Wrong. Now behind me here on the hood of the car are 4 different sets of lug nuts, and I'll get to why in a second, but I want to start with bag number 1. These are the original lug nuts that came on the car, and when I thread them onto the 7/16 bolt, what do you know? They're totally fine. Now these, in the second baggie, are the ones that came with my rims, and when I go to thread these on to the 7/16 bolt, you can almost immediately see that it just slides right over the threads, but as you get deeper, it gets an interference fit and actually starts to kind of thread onto it. Now that's not good for a lug nut, you need a perfect fit. But that interference fit is what made me think that the studs were wrong, and surely the brand new lug nuts that I got could not have been wrong. But after getting a thread checker and checking these threads on the lug nut, it turns out these are just slightly larger in a metric size, even though I ordered 7/16" lugs. Now, I'm not using this as an opportunity to absolutely destroy the company that I worked with. In fact, I want to commend them for the process that happened after this. So given that I now knew that my lugs were the wrong thread size, I reached back out and I said, hey, you guys sent me the wrong threads. Can you get me the same lug nuts but with a 7/16" thread? And they said, hey, we're so sorry about that. Let's get a new set sent out to you right away. And a week later, these showed up. Now, these look much different than the first ones. These are open-ended, and upon first look, they're a lot bigger. And guess what? 7/16 bolt, new lug nut, just slides. There's nothing. You don't even got any interference fit on this one. So I reached back out again and I said, hey guys, I'm so sorry, but I have the wrong lug nuts again. Can you get me the correct ones sent out? And they said, we're so sorry again. We're gonna put 2 people on quality control for this and make sure that you get the 7/16" lugs that you need. Which brings me to the 3rd replacement set that they sent me. And now this is amazing. They got the threads correct. So, okay, I could use these, right? Wrong. These lug nuts are too wide to fit into my brand new rims. The rims have a very, very thin hole that the lug nut goes into, and these are very, very fat. So the thread is correct, but the lug nut is completely wrong. So what did I do? I reached out again and I said, hey guys, for the 4th time, please, here's exactly what I need. I need the thin lug nuts. I need them to be 7/16 thread, and I need them to fit in my rims that you sent me, so you know how big they can be. And at this point, they said, we've sent you 4 sets of lug nuts. We're really sorry that none of them have worked. That's totally on us. Here's an offer. And this is why I want to commend these guys for amazing customer service. They said, if you can go out in your local area and find lug nuts that fit, we will pay for them. Now, you don't find a lot of companies that will owe up to a mistake like that and say, listen, we're obviously just not getting it right. We don't know what's going on. We don't know why it's happening, but we're gonna pay to make sure that it's right for you. And that brings me to my 5th set of lug nuts, these, which unbelievably were an Amazon purchase. I got them in 1 day after purchasing them. They're 7/16 20, they're very thin, they're spline drive. And look at this, they go on that stud absolutely beautifully. And so I said, here's how much it is. I bought them off Amazon, and lo and behold, they owed up. They paid for this set of lug nuts, and that's why I'm not using this as an opportunity to call some company out for doing subpar work. I'm actually sharing this because I loved working with them so much that even though these turned out wrong the first 4 times, their customer service made it worth working with them to go back again and again for future projects. So big shout out to the team at Custom Offsets for owing up, being great at customer service, and more importantly, providing an awesome set of new rims for the Camaro that we can finally properly put on. So with our lug nut fiasco over and done with finally, we have one major thing left to fix on this before we can take it out for a drive around the neighborhood. And that is that our transmission is still leaking. Now, thankfully, it's nothing internal that's leaking. It's none of the seals that we fixed. It's not the pan itself, but it is the dipstick fill tube. Now, I've already replaced both the gasket and the dipstick tube itself, and it is still having a problem. And I think it may be something as simple as either I overfilled the transmission or I installed the gasket with a little bit of ATF fluid around it, and it's just been escaping since then. So I'm gonna climb back under the transmission. I'm gonna drain the entire pan out to make sure I know exactly how much ATF is in there. Then I'm gonna pull the dipstick tube back off, make sure it's seated properly, and then put everything back together with a new gasket on the pan, and hopefully that fixes our problem. So if I go up underneath the transmission, you can see the dipstick and its seal right here. And it looks like it's sealing for the most part, but you can see that it is a little bit wet and reflective there. So I'm thinking a little bit of ATF fluid got on it when I installed it the first time. So it's just kind of giving it a pathway to come out without stopping it. So the plan is to take the entire transmission pan back off, take all these bolts out, drain all of the fluid out of this thing, and then refill it like 2 quarts, 1 quart at a time until we have a proper amount in here. Because I think it's overfilled, and I don't think the extra fluid pressure is helping with our transmission dipstick seal, so it's pushing extra fluid out of there because it's the only way out. After some careful measuring, it turns out that our transmission was not actually overfilled at all. We had about 3 quarts and 2 ounces of fluid in there. At least that's what came out of the pan when we dropped it. I'm sure there's at least a little bit more still up in there that's dripping down slowly, so let's call it 3.5 quarts max that was in there, and that's totally fine for this transmission once the torque converter is filled up. Which means if overfilling wasn't the problem, then it absolutely is that dipstick tube. Now we just have to pull that sucker out, get it cleaned off, and reseat it, and then we should be good to refill the transmission with some fresh ATF. Well, I've found the problem. After dropping the pan off the transmission, pulling the dipstick out, and then pulling the dipstick gasket off, I found out that this top hat gasket is completely shredded. It is almost 2 completely whole different pieces, and all it's gonna take is a little pull like that, and we have two completely separated pieces of gasket here. So that's not sealing anything. This is complete and total garbage. Thankfully, AutoZone carries these, so I can run out today, go and grab one, get the dipstick back in, and get everything filled back up before the end of today, and maybe even have this baby back on the ground, ready for its first drive. So with our gasket issue figured out, I'm now on my way off to AutoZone to get a brand new gasket and get that reinstalled. And I am so unbelievably glad that this was just an obvious issue with the transmission and not some deep technical issue that I was gonna take days for me to diagnose. And honestly, with as many problems as I've had working on this car, taking things apart, putting new things back on over and over and over, it is such a relief to have something go fairly easily. Even though it required me taking the transmission pan all the way off, it's so nice to have something that's just straightforward and finally makes me feel like I'm making progress towards getting this thing running properly again. So all we need now is a quick trip to AutoZone to get our parts, and we'll be back up and running very, very soon. And with that, we're back from the parts store and we've got our brand new gasket. Now this new one feels so much more plush and like squishy and rubbery, and this one is like hard and brittle already. So I think this was gonna break inevitably no matter what. It's a cheap one that came with the dipstick. I think this one is gonna do much, much better. All right, back under the car, we got our dipstick and the new seal put back on. Everything looks to be seating properly. This time you can actually see a little bit of this gasket came and popped through the hole completely. So I think that that's gonna be a really good sign that this is gonna seal properly. Now we just need to give it a little clean. We're gonna get all of that old transmission fluid out of the pan. Might as well make sure that everything is totally refreshed and good to go while we've got it off. Then we just go ahead and put it back up, make sure that gasket is aligned properly, get all those bolts back in there, and then tighten everything down with a little ratchet wrench here. And then it's time to add some new fluid. We just put 2 quarts in, and so far so good. There is no leak coming out of the dipstick. Let's keep going. We just put our third and what should be for now final quart in there, and we have no leaks. It's completely dry, completely sealed, nothing's coming out of there. So now we just have to run it and see if that works. All right, we've got the wheels put back on, and for the first time ever, we're gonna take it off the jack stands, put it back down on the brand new wheels, and we're gonna see how this baby looks with the fresh shoes. So unsurprisingly, something went wrong. After getting super excited to drive this, the battery is dead again. I have 0.4 volts in it right now, and that's because it sat for a month while I was waiting for the new lug nuts to show up. So right now we've got it on the trickle charger. It should be ready to go tomorrow morning, but for now, for tonight, we got a lever here, and we'll get super excited for tomorrow morning when I get to take this baby back out.
Why'd it go quiet? Nope. Pull past, he's gonna have to roll it into the driveway.
All right, we're leaking oil. Something blue. I don't know what blew. I have no idea what happened. The engine died. Thankfully, we were able to roll it all the way back to the house, but just completely cut out on us halfway through that. That's really not good. We might have just run out of gas, actually. I was supposed to check before we drove anywhere, and I didn't, so, you know, that's gonna be probably on me. And unsurprisingly, we're out of gas. That's all that was wrong. Okay, thank God. That's a whole lot worse than it could have been. But yeah, we are still, we're still leaking oil for some reason. So I don't know what's up with that, but we gotta figure some things out. So we'll be back in a minute. I don't know if I would call that exactly a successful first drive, but it did drive most of the way. We got up to about 25 miles an hour, and then we ran out of gas and the car died halfway through it. Our little oil leak is being caused by a bad oil pressure sender, which I already knew about. I just forgot about it, so I gotta get that replaced and get it sealed again, but that's the only cause of our oil leak. So overall, this thing is performing fantastic. Once I get the actual fuel tank all hooked up and tubed in and plumbed and everything, we should have no more problems getting this thing running without running out of fuel. I was so unbelievably nervous at that point that thing turned off. I was stressing out. I didn't know if we were gonna be able to make it all the way back to the house or not. Thankfully, it was just a quick cruise around the neighborhood. We were able to roll it all the way back to the driveway and get it back in the garage here. But that's where I'm gonna leave you guys for today, because that is an incredible ending to a very, very hyped up video. I hope you guys all enjoyed the first drive of the Camaro, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.